Hi everyone, this is Sister Sips and Stories, and we are back with our seventh episode. This time, we are going to be talking about another aspect of the subject that we discussed last time. So, essentially, part two of the folk tales sort of mini series that we had planned. So, last time we talked about the stories that Flora Annie Steel collected in during her time in Punjab, and this time we are actually going to go a little bit behind the scenes. We are going to talk about the people that were involved in that whole process of collecting stories, of translating, and of putting together that collection of folk tales. Also, we'll talk about the methods used in this work, the issues of translation that came up when the tales were translated from Punjabi into English, and also the inevitable colonial gaze that was present throughout the process. So I'll invite my co-host to share her opening thoughts. So Puneet, what is the first thing that you would like to talk about?
Hi, everyone. Good morning and welcome to this episode. So, the first thing that comes to my mind is when we talk about any stories or any work that has been written down. The first thing and the most important thing is the author, obviously. So, in our case, since we're talking about the folk tales collected by Flora Annie Steel, we have a look at why Flora Annie Steel collected these stories, what were her motivations behind it, and since she was an English woman, obviously she did not know Punjabi, or she might have known very less Punjabi. So, how did she manage to interact with the local people in order to collect these stories? And how did she document them? And then the whole process of collection, curation, translation, how did all that happen? So I would start with her. I would start with her motivations actually. Since she was a governor of government-aided schools in Punjab, that was her official position. So her work brought her in close contact with the local children and women, and she did learn a little bit of Punjabi in order to be able to communicate with them. And during her work, she used to travel to these remote villages, see the schools, try to come up with, interact with people. And that is how she kind of got interested in the collection of folk tales, because this was a kind of a popular entertainment in the villages. There was nothing else. There were no other forms of entertainment. And also, another very important factor here was that the British government, after the rebellion of 1857, the British monarch took over the governance of India from the hands of the East India Company. So that was basically when India became a colony of the British Empire. And now they wanted the governance to be such that nothing like 1857 can happen again. And they encouraged the people who were already in India, their officers, to kind of get to know the people, get to know the culture, get to know the language, collect and folk tales, collect their cultural things, document it, write about it. So basically, to get to know the people that they have imperialized, they have colonized. So, and that knowledge, it was not like a benevolent kind of knowledge. The aim here was to know the people so as to rule them better. The aim was always to rule them better. So that was the motivation behind collection of these stories. And Flora Eddy Steele was not even the first person to who had this idea of collecting stories. There were many others before her. So there is this woman called Mary Freer, who is supposed to be the first collector of folk tales in India. She was the daughter of the governor of Bombay, and she collected her. tales from the people who used to come to work at her house. There must have been many because she was the daughter of such a big official, and she had housemaids, gardeners, and I don't know how many people. So she
So,
used to,
so sorry to
yes.
interrupt, but so you said that Steele was not the first person to collect folktales, but was she the first to collect Punjabi folktales?
Okay, I cannot say for sure that she was the first one or the second one. I think there may have been others before her.
Okay.
I think most probably there were others before her because I don't right now I don't have the dates in front of me that which author collected the tales when. I do know that Steele collected her tales in 1894, but there is another gentleman by the name of Reverend Charles Swinnerton who has written a book entitled The Adventures of Punjabi Hero Raja Rasalu and Other Folk Tales of Punjab.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but I don't know when he collected it. It was most probably before Steele. But I guess Steele's work is getting a lot of attention in the last couple of decades of our time, and that is why Steele is more famous than the others. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
they
mean,
were.
Steele's book is also archived by one of the university libraries. That's where I found it. Do you know it?
Yes, but other books are also archived. They are there
Okay.
in open source. I can list the names of the books in the description
Okay.
so that people can search for it if they want. And all of these seem to be very interesting. There are tales from Bombay, from Maharashtra region. There are tales from Tamil tales are there from South India. There are tales from Punjab, Kashmir,
And all
all
of
these.
these collected by these colonial people, these rulers.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay. So you said that that the purpose was sort of driven by the politics of the time. So the British wanted to understand the people that they were ruling. And so so that was the primary reason you think that she was collecting these tales?
I would say that was the reason that gave a kind of credibility to their work. But primary reason or motivation was their own interest. And in some cases, because Steele was working, Steele was a working woman, but other people like Mary Frere and all that I was just talking about, uh, they were not working, they were at home and they were bored. They were simply lonely and bored because they had nothing to do. And the Indian heat, the summer heat of India wasn't very kind to them. So they were not very keen on going out of the house, or they were kind of housebound by the heat. So what could they do? There were very few things that they could do. One was reading. They would read a lot. They would write a lot, and so some of them turned to this because whole they had this whole retinue of people coming to their house who were full of these tales. So Mary Frere's father, who was the governor of Bombay, his name was Bartle Frere. He wrote a preface to his daughter's book, and in it he describes that these people are full of veritable gold mines. So uh, he encouraged his own people to dig these gold mines and take the gold and out and collect it. And by gold, obviously, he meant these folk tales and the cultural tales. And I think so. That was the main motivation, that people were bored, and people with a creative bent of mind simply wanted something to create, and this was the raw material that was readily available to them.
Yeah, fair enough. And I mean, given the cultural diversity of India, I mean, there must have been so much to draw upon, right? I mean, all sorts of little tales all across the country. So yeah, so yeah, that's amazing. So tell me, are there any examples of any native attempts at also collecting folk tales anywhere? Do you know that?
Native attempts, as in you mean Indian people
Like,
collecting these tales?
yeah.
Well, I don't know of any attempts during the times of British Raj, because I think the people of India were too busy being poor and just surviving. Survival
Mhm.
was a real concern during those days. Uh, so I don't know of any attempts, at least not to my knowledge, but I do know that post-partition, there is a gentleman by the name of Shafi Akil, who was a Pakistani, and he collected folk tales from the Punjab, from West Punjab, from the Pakistani Punjab, and he translated those tales into Urdu and wrote those down. There's an Urdu book that Shafi Akil wrote, which consists of folk tales of Punjab, and so that is the only attempt that I know of by not an Indian, a
By a
native,
person of the South
Punjabi. Yeah,
Asian descent. Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yes. So that is there, and then later his book, Shafi Akil's book, was translated into English by Ahmed Bashir, who is another Pakistani author, and that Bashir's book was published by the Oxford University Press, the English translation of Akil's tales. So those are the only two instances that I know of. There may have been more, but I'm
Mhm.
not aware.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, so we'll come back to those to these translations that you're talking about, and when we're discussing translation issues. But tell me, what do you think was the audience that they were collecting tales for? Like that they were translating. So you already said that this was political. So I'm guessing it was for the British people. But within that, do you think it was just the political, the people who were calling the shots, the politicians, the people who were making administration plans about India? Like, were they the audience, you think, or was it also meant for children because they were folk tales?
Yes, so Steele's book was definitely meant for children, because Steele, in the first edition of her book, clearly mentioned the first edition of her book was also named Wide Awake Tales, stories collected from little children. So it was definitely meant for children. And but later editions of the book changed the name of the book from Wide Awake Stories, stories collected from little children, to Tales of the Punjab, Folk Tales of India. So I think that was a very deliberate change, because I think her publishers did not want the audience to feel that these tales, since they are collected from children, they may not be very suitable for adults. uh, they may be too simple for adults or something. So they deliberately changed the name of the book, and it was meant for children and it was meant for adults as well, because Steele's book, when it was published, became very popular back in England. uh, People were reading about it, commenting about it, and as regards the process of translation, since you asked me, that yes, translation was involved, because the stories were collected in the native language. Particularly in Steele's case, if we talk, the stories were collected in Punjabi, and then they had to be translated to English. And Steele took the help of many native people, because even though she knew some Hindustani or Punjabi, I'm sure she did not know enough to uh, talk about, to understand the cultural context, or all the colloquialisms that were there, all the proverbs and the sayings that were there. She definitely needed some local person with the local knowledge of the culture, with the native knowledge of the culture, to explain the context to her, so that she could then translate it into English. So my research has showed up that there was a girl called Bakhtawar, a girl named Bakhtawar, who was the daughter of a local zimindar from Lahore, I believe. Bakhtawar was the one who mainly helped Steele in the process of collection, curation, and the explaining of the local context and even translation. And in the first edition of the book, Steele acknowledges the work, the help provided by Bakhtawar. She identifies her by name, and she tells a little bit about who Bakhtawar is. But in the subsequent editions of the book, and this is very significant, Bakhtawar's name has all but disappeared. She removed any credit to any local person whatsoever, maybe on the advice of her publishers, or it was a calculated move. I can't say what their motivations were, but Bakhtawar has disappeared from the pages of history. In the first edition, Steele mentions that Bakhtawar still continues to do this work of collection of folk tales and curation. And she also mentions that Bakhtawar later married a local person called some Qureshi. But what was her motivation in mentioning that Bakhtawar married Qureshi? I'm not sure. But there are questions on Steele that Steele and the other British authors, that if Bakhtawar continued to collect tales, and you mentioned it, that she continues to do the work, why is her name not to be found anywhere in any of the works that were published? And uh, why has she kind of all but disappeared from the annals of history? And Bakhtawar was not the only one. There were many others. There's a very famous British collector, a British author of that time called William Crook. William Crook, I'm forgetting the name of the books he wrote, but he did a lot of work and he's also very famous. And he was famously helped by a person, local Indian person called Pandit Ram Garib Chaube. I mentioned his name in our previous episode also. So Pandit Ram Garib Chaube helped uh, William Crook a lot with the collection and the translation. But William Crook never acknowledged his name anywhere. And how we come to know today about these people is that there is an Indian researcher named Sadhna Naithani. She wrote an essay. She's written books also and an essay also called The Colonial Folklorist. And in during the course of her research, she went to British archives. She visited the British archives, and there she dug out the names of all these people. She actually found letters from Pandit Ram Garib Chaube to William Crook, who had later gone back to England. So Pandit Ram Garib was writing to William Crook, asking him to uh, credit him in his work, and also for some kind of financial reimbursement. But William Crook never replied back.
That is, oh my God. I mean, wow. I mean, we kind of know this, generally speaking, that that the British, or other people who colonized other parts of the world, that they just sort of took resources and took knowledge, cultural knowledge, and they never gave credit to anyone. But to hear the actual names from you, and to hear that how these people, their labor and their sort of all that, the work that they put into it, how it was very quietly sidelined, that they were completely sidelined, and they probably didn't even get any reimbursement. You're saying
Not at all. Not at all.
that's very
Here
sad.
I'd like to mention the first person who collected, I just mentioned Mary Freer, who collected these folktales from her housemate. And she never acknowledged the name of her housemate anywhere in her work. But now, due to the efforts of other researchers, we know that her housemate's name was Anna Liberata D'Souza. She
Okay.
was an Indian Christian. Yeah, and she collected the folktales from Anna D'Souza, but she never credited her. She never named her. And Mary Freer's book, uh, which was titled Old Deccan Days or Hindu Fairy Legends, was a very popular book. It had been reprinted and republished many times during that time when it first came out. And Mary Freer got a fat compensation package from her publishers during those times. But not a penny of it went to Anna D'Souza.
That's very sad. And unfortunately, I mean, well, there is a lot more recognition of cultural knowledge and the people from whom knowledge is collected these days, like in contemporary times. But
Yeah.
still, this is a huge issue that when researchers from global north institutions, when they come to global south to collect data, when they do field work, uh, it's very the whole process is very extractive. So they just go there, like they go into these remote places, they go into impoverished communities, and they're there to get data, and they do that, and then off they go, back to their institutions, and then they go on to produce all this knowledge, which is all based on this information that they've collected from these people. But you know, there isn't much in that whole process. There, the people who are providing that information, that data, there isn't much for them, or most of the time, there's nothing for them. So sometimes, like research ethics boards will require that you give some form of compensation for their time, uh, but there's a whole sort of ethics related rigmarole that if you offer monetary compensation to people for their time, then they will be more likely to give you the answers that they think that you are looking for. So it's a can of worms. So what I mean to say is that this process is still extractive, unfortunately. So it's not as extractive and it's not as exploitative as it used to be. There is some acknowledgement now, but still it remains very tricky because oftentimes there's nothing for the communities and the people that give you that information. So that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to say, which is not at all relevant, but I just, when you said Bakhtawar, so Bakhtawar was the name of my gym trainer. He's the man who helped me to get fit while I was writing my PhD thesis. So shout out to Bakhtawar. I don't think he's listening. Uh, he's a total jock. I don't think he listens to this stuff. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah.
But a very cool story about the girl called Bakhtawar, and that's another thing that so girls were also called Bakhtawar. I have not in contemporary times I've not come across any girls who are called Bakhtawar, but nice name. Yeah, okay. But sorry. Okay, so the other question that comes to mind was that these people who were helping Steele and the other lady also who was helping the person collecting folktales in Bombay. Um, these people who were helping them, like Bakhtawar and Pandit Ramgarhi Chaube and Anna D'Souza. So they were well versed in English as well, in addition to the native languages.
Yes. So these, I'm not sure about the housemaid named Anna D'Souza. She was probably not, but Bakhtawar and Pandit Ramgarib Chaube were supposed to be, they were well familiar with the English. They spoke English well. So that's the reason they could help these people. And in case of Anna D'Souza and Mary Frere, I think Mary Frere was very well versed in Hindustani. So that's how she could communicate with Anna D'Souza and they could do the work of collection.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Um, okay, and this name has also come up when I was also looking at the book, R.C. Temple, and that name has also come up in other searches that I have done. He seems to be a prominent figure. Did you want to tell us about him?
Yes. So Major R.C. Temple was a very prominent author. He was in the British Army, obviously, earlier. And then I think when he retired, or maybe when he was still in the forces, he took on the white man's burden. He took this very seriously. So let me explain what white man's burden is. So white people, when they went and colonized other countries in Africa and Asia, had this certain sense of superiority, and they had this certain sense that the world was very Eurocentric. Obviously, it was, because European countries were the ones that were imperializing, that they went out and colonized other countries in Asia and Africa. So there was a sense that everything European or everything to do with white people is markedly superior to everything Asian or African. That whatever colored people do, or whatever is the civilization or culture of colored people, is inferior to what the white man is. And so they felt it's their inherent duty to rule these people and to bring them into light. So that was also the goal behind the missionaries, who Christian missionaries who came to Asia and converted people from so-called pagan religions to Christianity, and also British people who believed that they are inherently superior, and their language is superior to ours, their culture is superior to ours, their literature is superior to ours. So they thought that it was their God-given duty, and they actually thought, this is not sarcasm, or this is not just this is not just a political ploy to rule other people. They were convinced of this from inside, that this is their God-given duty to bring these people out of the darkness towards the light, to spread their culture and their religion and everything. So in order to do that, so especially the white males, they were, because even in those times, even the white woman was socially uh, inferior to a white man. So you would see that all these women who were writing these books, because they were white women, they always seemed to need the sanction or collaboration of a white man. uh, if a woman were to bring out a book all by herself, no publisher would publish it, because it would not be considered serious literature unless it receives the sanction of a white male. So Richard Carnac Temple was an author. He himself used to collect folk tales. He used to publish in a journal called Indian Antiquaries. Uh, and Steele requested him, because Steele was bringing out this book. So she also needed a collaborator who was a white male. So I think she requested him to collaborate with her on her book. And he contributed a few tales to her book. So the Adventures of Raja Rasalu, which are like 4 or 5 tales in Steele's book, were contributed by R.C. Temple. And he and Steele wrote the foreword together in the book. And the notes at the end of the book are all written by R.C. Temple. So his official position in Steele's book is that of a collaborator and annotator.
Okay.
So due to that sanction provided by R.C. Temple, her book was picked up by publishers, and it was like he kind of gave the seal of approval. And in so much so that one of the later authors, English authors, was referring to Steele's book, and he taught, when he was acknowledging uh, that his work was based on this book, he wanted to thank the author, and he thanked R.C. Temple, and he did not mention Steele at all.
Oh man, that's hilarious. Okay. So, I mean, in the scheme of things, even the white women were also much lower in hierarchy than the white men.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. That's very interesting. Okay. So I was thinking, since so it was such a I mean, like, so gender roles, you're saying, were so sort of strictly delineated. Do you find any examples of this kind of thing in the stories? So this Victorian era sort of gender roles, like for example, this author that we have both enjoyed in our childhood, Enid Blyton, her stories and her books, although we found them very enjoyable, these days, those stories and books are not considered appropriate for children, at least here where I am in Canada and in America also, I think, because of the way that Blyton was writing about gender roles. Like if there was any house cleaning to be done, it was always the girls who were doing it, and the boys were always going for adventures, that sort of thing. It was very clear in Blyton's books. And now that I think back, I think that yeah, that division was definitely very clear. Although I don't think that those are grounds to avoid reading Blyton's books, but that's a different discussion. Um, are there any sort of examples like this from these stories that Steele collected? Like, did she, or were they like even the society, the culture that she was drawing upon, even our society and culture was patriarchal? So do you think there was already an alignment between those gender roles? Like, or did she, or did Steele change something when she wrote the stories?
So, Steele must have changed a lot of things. And she not must have, she did change a lot of things, but we'll come to that later. First, we're talking about gender roles. During the 19th century, when these tales are being collected and translated, gender roles are very clearly defined. I think all over the world, not just in India or not just in Punjab, even in the West, in England, Victorian values reign supreme and gender roles are different. So yes, in most of the folk tales, you will find that it's always the woman who is doing the housework and the male is working out in the fields or going out to trade and that kind of thing. But also, which is what is very interesting. So I'm not looking at gender roles in this manner. I'm looking at gender roles from a different perspective, that women are generally shown to be the root cause of conflict. Like uh, if if uh, if a king is evil, uh, the cause would be probably his wife. Like, let's take the example of Raja Salwan in Puran Bhagat's tale. Raja Salwan goes and marries this very beautiful woman named Luna, who is a lower caste woman. And then Raja Salwan uh, also orders the mutilation and exile of his son Puran because he listens to Luna. But here the bigger villain is Luna and not Salwan in the narrative, in the popular narrative. People kind of vilify Luna more. They don't really say that Raja Salwan was his character was bad or his judgment was bad. How could a father do this to his son just by listening to a woman? They vilify Luna, that she was a stepmother and she did this, and she was attracted to her son Puran, which was kind of incest, because that Puran was her husband's son, even though he was closer in age to her. But she kind of typifies that evil stepmother archetype in Indian in Punjabi culture. So
Yeah,
that kind of thing is seen everywhere in the tales. Also, age related things, if you analyze the stories with really deeply, you will see that the women, even in women, the young women are benevolent and innocent, and the old women are always ugly and crafty and I don't know what they have against old women, because every young woman is ultimately going to grow old. I don't know why, but you'll always find that the beautiful young woman is unspoiled, innocent, very nice or naive, and the ugly old woman is a witch. She's crafty. She's the villain in the story. So that kind of thing, yes, a lot of that pattern can be found.
that's very interesting, fascinating. So yeah, so the thing is that, yeah, and also no one questions, no one points out to this thing in Raja Salvan's story that, he went and married a woman who was young enough to be his daughter, and like that's totally fine because
Yes.
uh,
But and also the way he treated his first wife, uh, he just kind of discarded her like a used personal thing, like a used cloth or something. Uh,
oh, I didn't
he
know that.
Yes, no, I mean, he did not discard her as in he threw her out of the house because he was a Raja. He had a huge palace. There was no financial constraint or anything. But she was largely ignored. I'm sure he did not go and ask her that, can I marry this younger woman? Or he took her feelings into account or anything. So Ichhara's role in that story is just as the mother of Puran. And if she has a little bit of relevance in the story, it's just because she is Puran's mother. And when Puran was mutilated and exiled, she cried so much that went blind. And
Right.
that's all that her role is in the story.
Right. So women are either being, they are either just motherly figures, or they are these virginal figures, like you described it. They're young and beautiful and innocent, naive. So that, like, virginal, I'm guessing, is that's the underlying idea. And these older women, there is that archetype of that villainous, sort of crafty, sort of older women. That's very
Mhm.
interesting. That's definitely something to explore further, right?
Yes, and the also the uh, women are supposed to be the young women are supposed to be the princesses, especially are so beautiful that men just fall in love with them at the first glance.
First glance.
Yeah. So the men don't have any brains or any personality or anything. They just look at a lovely face and they fall head over heels in love. And then they are willing to do anything for that woman.
Yeah. Fascinating. Okay, so what is the idea of beauty? I know that in our personal conversations, you've mentioned that the way that Steele has I like described these beautiful women, that has to be an outsider's gaze and a colonial person's gaze. That cannot be the Punjabi idea of beauty. So, did you want
Yeah.
to talk about that a bit?
Yes. So when you read Steele's tales, you will come across a lot of golden-haired princesses, fair, you know, and the I think the most prominent marker that I can talk about is golden hair. So the golden-haired princesses are everywhere. Most all of the beautiful princesses have golden hair, which is not possible in India, not in Punjab. Nobody has golden hair, right? So, but that is the norm of beauty probably in the West. At least at that time, it must have been because these tales were meant to be read by children or teens. So, to convey the idea that a woman is very beautiful, Steele constructed these descriptors for her, where the princess would have long golden flowing hair or shining tresses and something like that, which probably which most probably the person who was telling the tale originally would not have mentioned, because I don't think anyone mentions, in the descriptors of beauty, that that woman had uh, beautiful long black hair, or do they? I don't know. But none of Steele's princesses have black hair. They all have golden hair. Yeah.
all all the princesses must have had European genes, not
Yeah.
Punjabi genes. So, but
Okay.
that's very interesting. I mean, yeah, like the way that she changed the description of beautiful women, yes, but also that this idea of beauty, it just continues to persist across the world, even in contemporary times. I'll just tell you a quick personal story. So I used to have this one colleague who was also a friend, where I used to live previously, where I did my PhD. And so this my colleague has black hair. So she's an Eastern European person, actually not really Eastern European, even further east. So anyway, but she has black hair. Everyone in her family has black hair. So her daughter has these golden hair, so blonde hair, because my colleague's husband is a white Canadian man, right? So I used to sometimes read stories to my friend's daughter, and I would spend some time with her, play with her, just whenever I would go over to visit. So I remember this one time. So this little girl, she had a collection of all the Disney princesses. Those Snow White. What are the other ones? The
Sleeping Beauty,
Sleeping Beauty.
Cinderella.
Yeah, all that. And so these are all white women. And then she had Jasmine, Princess Jasmine also. So Princess
Hmm.
Jasmine is
Eastern.
Arabic or Middle Eastern or something like that. And so she has long black hair, right? She's Aladdin's girlfriend.
Yeah.
So, and this little girl, my friend's daughter, she's like, oh, look at, I think she was talking about Sleeping Beauty or one of these other white princesses. And she was saying, oh, look at her hair and look how beautiful and all that. And so I played along with the whole thing for a while. And I was like, hoping that she would talk about Jasmine as well, but she didn't. And so I finally picked up Jasmine's figure, the doll, and I said, "Well, what about Princess Jasmine? What do you think?" She said, "Oh yeah, she's okay." And so, I try to say things like, "No, I think she's pretty. Don't you think she's pretty? Look at her skin. She's got this olive skin, and look at her hair and all." But this little girl,
No,
no, she wasn't interested. Although her mom has like black hair, right? So unfortunately, this idea of beauty of women with blonde hair and fair skin, that's very persistent even in our times.
it
Although
is.
things seem to be
Yeah.
shifting slightly, but sorry, that was not to detract from your point. Uh, so
So
yeah,
here
so
I would like to mention another thing that since the storyteller must have told her in their own words what a beautiful woman looks like, and Steele took it and translated it into a fair-skinned and golden-haired woman, right? And the interesting thing is that when Shafi Akil, the Pakistani author, um, collected these tales, he imposed his own idea of beauty on those tales because he was writing in the state of Pakistan, which is an Islamic country, and his version of beauty is a very Islamic version. So I have not read Akil's book, but I have read about it. And there is this researcher named Noor Fatima, and she's written a whole thesis comparing Steele's book to Shafi Akil's book. And this was the point that she brought out that when Steele collected the stories, and when she wants to describe a beautiful woman, she describes it in a certain Western way. And when Shafi Akil is describing a beautiful woman, he describes a beautiful woman in a very Islamized way,
and what
which
is
would be
that?
acceptable to the Islamic people. I don't know the specifics of that, but it would definitely not be a golden haired beauty. It would
Oh.
be probably a chaste woman, who's dressed modestly, who keeps her eyes, who is obedient and not rebellious, that kind of
Mhm.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Maybe it's I don't know, but it's so it seems that beauty uh is based a lot on the idea of what hair look like. So, like the Punjabi idea of beauty, as we know from from the folk songs and from some contemporary songs also, there are these descriptions of comparing like women's long hair to snakes. That can you think of any songs? But I can't think of
Yeah,
any songs, but
yeah, I can't think of songs, but I know the phrase like sapni vargi gut, which means a braid that looks like a long snake.
yeah. And so it's interesting to think about it because I don't find snakes beautiful. Uh, but there are this expression, this particular phrase is in a lot of songs. So I'm thinking that perhaps, this is coming from somewhere. Maybe this is in the folk tales, perhaps, in proverbs, perhaps. Or is it something to do with how, like, are they trying to say that a woman's long braided hair are as mesmerizing as a snake, because the snake's movements, the way it moves its body is supposed to be mesmerizing, right? Is it?
Yes, that I think that's the idea. That's where it comes from. Because the braid, when a woman walks, if it's a long braid, it'll go, it oscillates like a pendulum, and that kind of also draws the viewer's attention to her curves,
Oh,
and so it's
yes.
supposed to be. But look at the
Yeah.
dichotomy in Greek mythology. The woman with the head full of snakes is Medusa, who is a kind of a witch. Anyone who she's so horrible looking that anyone who looks at her gets turned to stone.
Yeah.
And here we're describing a beautiful woman by the way her hair or her braid resembles a snake.
I know
Lovely.
it's so interesting. Yeah, I have never agreed with that, that description, because you know me, I don't like snakes. So I've always been like, what looks like a snake? What? But it's the interesting thing is, like you said about Egyptian mythology. Here we
Greek.
have this, yeah. Here we have this Punjabi idea, which to some extent still persists, I think, because I still hear that in songs sometimes. And then the Islamic idea of beauty is to not, that the hair should not be visible, right?
At all.
So
Yeah.
it's actually the frame of the face that is framed with the hijab um, in
But
some Islamic culture.
the Islamic idea of hair not being visible is because hair is so beautiful that it tempts men.
Mm,
So the women are supposed to keep their hair covered so as not
mm.
to tempt men. So the
Right, right.
Islamic idea is also of beauty is the same.
So I guess hair are very important. That's what we are coming to. Okay, well, so other than the idea of beauty that she changed for the British audiences, what else do you think she changed?
Okay, so one more very prominent thing that again I get from Fatima's analysis, Noor Fatima's thesis, is that when you compare Akil's tales and Steele's tales, you'd find that the women in Akil's tales are more dependent, more childlike, more naive and innocent. Uh, who they are going to marry is not a decision that they take, it's a decision that is taken by the elders of their family or something like that. But when you read Steele's tales, you will find that the heroines are more independent. They are they're not so naive. They like if I can give example of one tale, I related the tale of Bopolucci in our last episode. So she is one of Steele's heroines. So she is very independent, very resourceful. She deals
Mm,
with the troubles all by herself, and she has no elder to look after her. Or and also if you look at the other tales collected by Steele, you'll find that the heroines, the princesses, make up their own mind of who to marry. They don't go and necessarily ask permission from their elders, and so the women in Steele's tales are more independent, outgoing, and more they know their own mind.
mhm.
That's the
Okay.
difference. So probably Steele might have changed a few things to appeal more to the Western palate, to the English palate.
Right, right. Because I can imagine that, back when these folktales were collected, at that time, women were not even, I mean, they were not even allowed to go out of their homes, probably. Like their mobility must have been extremely restricted. So
Yeah,
that's why I was, when you narrated the tale of Bopolucci, I was very impressed because I was like, wow, I mean, this woman is doing a lot
yeah,
of things, taking on all these baddies on her own.
all
So,
by herself. Yeah,
yeah.
and then there is another tale by the name of Peasy and Beansy. The tale of Peasy and Beansy is that there are these uh, two sisters. First of all, she obviously anglicized their names. So they are not named Peasy and Beansy originally. They were named Moto and Mumbo.
Okay.
Moto is a kind of white pea. So that lady is called Peasy, and moong, moong beans, moong dal that we eat. And that woman is called Beansy. She translated the names to English. She anglicized the names. And those in that story, these two sisters are living independently in a place, in a house that is separate from their parental house. And they are not
Oh.
married or anything. Like it's just the two of them living, which I found very improbable, because two women living alone by themselves was not something that could be heard or even imagined in the 19th century Punjab. So probably she changed that tale a little bit too, I
Hmm.
believe. Yeah.
Okay. So she changed also the social contexts a little bit.
Yes, because that was something that immediately struck me, because even these days, a woman living totally alone, and even though it's more common now, but still not as acceptable as it is in the West, let's say.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that was something that was immediately, it stood out to me, like how are these two women living alone on their own?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Um, I guess it's a useless question. I probably already know the answer, but I'll ask it anyway. Was there any attempt to bring these stories back to Punjab at all? Like to maybe have
Look,
narrations in.
I know of one book. It's this book. It's written by Dr. Karamjeet Singh. And this is essentially a translation of Steele's book, Steele's Tales, into Punjabi. So I haven't read this book completely. I've read a few tales from it. Uh, but forgive me for saying being so blunt, but I don't think Dr. Karamjeet Singh has done a very good job. He could have done much better if he wanted to. He could have put more effort and brought the original. He could have researched more and brought the
Hmm.
original tales to life, but
Hmm.
instead what he's done is he's just taken Steele's book, which is in English, and translated those tales into Punjabi. So even the original rhymes that Steele has given, some of those rhymes in the notes at the end, he could have kept those poems the same. He could have taken it from there and just, you know, uh, put them as it is in his book. But he's changed the poems as well. So I feel
Okay.
that the character of the tales is much changed, though he has
Mhm.
made an attempt, and that is commendable. But had there been a little more effort put into this book, it could have been much better. This is the only book that I know of. Do you know of any such attempt or any such book?
No, in fact, I mean, in fact, Steele's book even was a revelation for me. I only came across it 2 years ago, and a cousin of mine introduced me to the book. And I was quite pleased actually to see that, okay, yes, this is a British person, but someone at least has collected folk tales, Punjabi folk tales, and put together the tales in a collection. Because, as you know, as we have talked about many times, that there's a real dearth of effort to sort of to collect, to curate, and to preserve cultural knowledge, literary sort of knowledge, especially these oral traditions, which are at great risk of being lost as these older people, pass away, and all this knowledge is lost with them. So I am actually quite pleased to know. But you were mentioning to me that there are some other books also. Did you want to
Yeah,
mention those?
yeah. So I would like to mention a lady named Gurmeet Kaur. She resides in the US, and she has published a few books which are primarily meant for children, but they feature all these tales with these small little rhymes that usually are told by a dadi or a nani, grandparents, to their grandchildren. Um, so she has collected a lot of those tales, and she has published very beautiful books for children. They are available in the US. Unfortunately, they're not available in India. Um, but so her books are uh, very intelligently printed. So they have one page in Punjabi, and then they have the same page on the other side in English. So a person who cannot read Punjabi can read the tale in English also.
Oh, nice.
Uh, so those books were really, from whatever I could see from her Instagram page, where she shares a few excerpts or uh, videos of her reading the books, reading from the books. Those seem to be really nice, and she has some 5 or 6 books where she's collected these small little stories. A story of the hungry ant, and it's titled Ukhad Kidi. People who who speak or understand Punjabi would know what that it's a kind of a hilarious Punjabiism
It's
for
cute.
glutton. It's cute
Yeah.
also, and
Yeah.
it refers to a glutton.
Yeah.
And then there is one, the lamb and the drum, or in Punjabi, Leela Te Tol, which
Hmm.
is, I'm very interested to read it, because this is also one of the tales that Steele has in her book. And I want to see what Steele has compiled, and what she collected, and what that lady remembers, because Gurmeet Kaur, she heard it probably from her
Hmm.
ancestors, her grandparents. So I want to compare the two, because it's exactly the same story. So
Okay.
how different those two are. Unfortunately, I don't have access to Gurmeet Kaur's book, but hopefully, if I'm able to get my hands on it sometime later, I would like to read it and see.
Hmm.
And there are others also. I don't remember all the names, but there are like 5 or 6 books there.
Oh, wait.
In addition to Gurmeet Kaur, sorry, you want
No,
to say
no.
something?
I was just gonna say we can put it in the description later.
Yeah, I'll do that. And or you can just go to Gurmeet Kaur's page on Instagram, and I'll link that also in the description.
Yeah.
So in addition to her, there has been some work in Pakistan. Like I said, Shafi Akil has collected folk tales directly from the people and then published them in a book. Unfortunately, he was in a country where kind of freedom of press is questionable. So he did collect many stories, but he only published 15 in his book. I think he meant to publish another book with other stories, but he never got around to doing it. So those tales are lost now. His notes are lost now. They're not available. So
Hmm.
Shafi Akil did something like that. And uh,
That's
I
it.
don't
Eh?
know of any
Yeah.
other person. I would actually like to appeal to our listeners that if they know of some book that has been such a book that's been written by an Indian or a Punjabi of folk tales, please mention it in the comments. We would love to read it. We would love to analyze it. And also, I would want to take this opportunity to put out a call for folk tales, because I myself want to collect and curate folk tales from any region of India, and in any
Right.
language that you that feels comfortable, and in any format that feels comfortable to you.
Hmm.
I want to collect. I want those folk tales that you heard from your nani or dadi, from your grandparents or relatives. Please tell it to us. We will take it. We will if it's not in Punjabi or Hindi, we will translate it, and we want to publish it in a book later on.
Yeah. No, that's a really noble project. And like I said before, I mean, I think that there's a real need to do this, especially for Punjabi folktales, because there has been very little work done in that region. So, yeah. And also, for some reason, in our particular family, there wasn't, I mean, our parents never told us any folk tales. So I don't know what was going on
Oh,
with
one.
our, except for
Like this,
one.
there was one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, which you remember, and we've talked
Gideon.
about that.
No,
Yeah.
there was another one which I heard, which probably you did. I heard it from a relative, not from our parents. I heard it from a relative, and it was a very interesting story as well.
Hmm.
And I also heard a few from our grandpa from our grandmother, but I was very young, so I don't remember those dates much.
Right, right. Yeah, but if we can find a few and document those, I think that will be our little contribution.
Yeah.
So hopefully we get some. Yeah, I think those were all the points that I had written down. Do you have anything else in mind that you want to
I
share?
would like to, yeah, I would like to mention that even though we don't have a collected and curated book like Steele's book in Punjabi, some of the kissas have been written down and documented by various people. For example, the kissa of Luna and Puran Bhagat, the kissa, it's known as the kissa of Puran Bhagat, was originally penned by Kadir Yar, who was a 19th century Punjabi Sufi poet who lived in the reign of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. So, in Maharaja Ranjit Singh's reign, he wrote down the kissa of Puran Bhagat, he wrote the kissa of Soni Mahiwal, he also wrote the kissa of Raja Rasalu and a couple of others. So these are I could not find any book that gives me all of his kissas together, but in various digital in various websites I found the kissa of Kadir Yar, sorry, the kissa of Puran Bhagat written by Kadir Yar. I found the whole kissa. And if one can read Punjabi, they should read this because it's a beautiful long form poem in which he describes the whole kissa. And then I was looking for the kissa of Raja Rasalu, also written by Kadir Yar, but I could not find the original kissa anywhere. But I did find uh, an author named Baba Budh Singh, who has written the kissa of Raja Rasalu in a book based on the original by Kadir Yar. But I could not find the original by Kadir Yar anywhere.
Mhm.
So yeah, people have done some work, but probably not enough. Like, why don't I have a whole book of Kadir Yar, where like a whole collection? I can find William Shakespeare's entire collection of plays in one book, which is
You
this
can.
thing. But I can't find Kadir Yar's collection of work in one book, which would not even be this thick. It would be probably like something like this. And but I
And
can't.
what's interesting is you can also find the complete works of Shakespeare in Punjabi in a book that thick.
Oh, what
But you can't find.
to
Yeah,
say?
it's so sad. So, but yeah, well, we can only do what we can do. But did you also want to talk about your article that is forthcoming?
Yes, so I wrote a paper that's a critical review of this book, Tales of the Punjab by Flora Annie Steel. And in it, I look at her translation methods. I look at how how the tales change in translation from one language to another. And a very important question that I talk about is something that Gayatri Spivak wrote about, that when uh, a foreigner tells the tale that belongs to a particular land, like in our case, Punjab, when a Punjabi folk tale is told by an English woman and we read it after 2 centuries, now whose voice do we hear? Are we hearing the original native voice or are we hearing the English woman's voice?
Yeah.
So that's what the article is about. With it's not been published yet, but it's under publication, and hopefully by the time I edit and post this video on YouTube, it will be published. If so, I will post a link to the article in the description box.
Yeah.
And well, it's not a dry research paper kind of an article. It's replete with examples and from the stories, particular instances. So it's a very light, readable article, which
Yeah.
people perhaps can go and read if they are interested.
People should absolutely read it. I myself am looking forward to reading it. I've read a draft, but I'd like to read it in its published form as well. And so, do you want to answer? Do you want to take? Well, you can't answer, I guess, but do you want to take a stab at answering that question? That whose voice is it that we hear?
So yes, it's not the native voice, obviously, because that voice has been lost somewhere in time. So what I would say that what we hear is kind of a hybrid
Hmm.
voice. The native tales told through the English author, and
Hmm.
it's a kind of a hybridized version of the folk tale that we get
Hmm. Right.
after.
But do you
Yeah.
think if we can go a little bit further, do you think that there are enough glimpses in there, or enough echoes, I guess, of the native voice, from which we can perhaps draw a more authentic picture if we try? Do you think that it's there?
Yes, definitely it is there. It is, and though we have talked enough about Flora Annie Steel being an English woman who belonged to the rulers, and they colonized India and whatever else they did. But I'm also kind of grateful to her for taking this initiative and collecting these folk tales and
Mhm.
preserving them in a book so that we can read them today. And also thankful to and grateful to R.C. Temple, who has provided extensive notes at the end
Mm.
of the book, which give us a very good glimpse into what the original tales were, how the native people told those tales to the collectors in their native language. So even though it is written, the script is Roman, the script is that of English. It's not Gurmukhi script, but in Roman script, if you read carefully enough, you can make out the words in Punjabi, and that gives you a very good glimpse into the cultural context, the kind of language that was being used at, because language also, Punjabi language has also shifted and changed over the years, over centuries. And how the language was being used, what kind of language was being used at that time, and what were the influences on Punjabi language, because Punjabi is not one language. Punjabi is a whole umbrella of languages with many different dialects. And so in the tales, you would find you would find Persian influence, Arabic influence, you would find Avdi or Hindi influence on Punjabi. So all those things, if you read carefully enough, are very visible.
Fascinating stuff. Okay. Okay. So I guess on that note, we can close. Thank you for sharing your thoughts. I know you've been spending a lot of time researching this subject. And I think that you will continue to do so for some time. And if, in the future, if there are additions that you want to make to this discussion, if there are more examples, maybe more stories, maybe, you're fortunate enough to find some stories on your own, then we can continue this series and make another episode.
Definitely, we can do that. And I think we will do that because folk tales is something that continues to interest me. And I think it interests a lot of people. And we will continue discussing and researching folk tales. So until then,
Yeah,
see you.
yeah, absolutely. That's a wrap.